The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Jason Bryan from the Short-Time Wrestling Podcast and founder of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned and operated, and those opinions presented and expressed may not reflect others, the sponsors, patrons, or the parent network. Find more shows about the greatest sport in the world at the Matt Talk Podcast Network at matttalkonline.com.
The mind of Pat Popolizio is a wondrous thing. And for you Pac wrestling fans, you'll get to go inside the mind of the Skip each and every episode here on the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now, here's your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. I'm your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt, and we are sitting at episode 72, and even better than that 72nd episode, we are getting oh so close to the college wrestling season. Sitting here just a couple weeks away where the NC State wrestling team will return to action. And what better way to preview a season than to talk about NCAA rankings and where our guys sit? And Pat Popolizio, he's out of town. He's not on this episode. So I kind of went against his rules and something he doesn't like to talk about. We're going to talk about preseason rankings. Joining us, our annual tradition from the openmat.com. We have Earl Smith. Earl, thanks once again for joining us and talking some preseason wrestling rankings here.
Yeah, glad to be here. Got big shoes to fill trying to sub in for Coach Pop, but I will do my best.
You really don't. He's only on every other episode, so. But, you know, it's his podcast. It's his rules. But I guess first I would just want to start off with, before we dive into the rankings, we've heard from coaches, we've heard from wrestlers about just the pandemic going on. NCAA's canceled a lot of summer activities and freestyle canceled, and we're starting back up a little bit with some RTC and freestyle. But I wanted to get, as a journalist, how has this time been for you guys? You guys need content, you need events. So how has the wrestling journalism kind of gone when there really hasn't been that much?
Yeah, it's really forced us, at least I'm thinking for myself at least, to kind of step out of the box, do some more creative ideas as far as content goes. I guess maybe you can speak to this as well. When you're in the flow of season or even off season, when you have freestyle events, you kind of have a flow, a way of doing things, you know, what to expect. So it kind of forced everyone to step out of their comfort zone and do some new things. And I think, you know, from a media side, from the wrestling, the coaching side, I think we've seen a lot of creative ideas. You spoke of the RTC Cup, the events like tonight with the Wolfpack and the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. So I think the fans and everybody are going to win in the end, seeing everybody have to be creative.
And yes, we've mentioned RTC Cup, and we're going to pull the curtain back a little bit. We are taping this the day that NC State will be traveling up to Penn State for some freestyle matches, 20 matches involving NC State wrestlers. And we'll talk to Pat once he gets back into town about that. But the RTC Cup freestyle, it's kind of gotten the juices going for exciting college wrestling action. Now, mostly it's been veteran guys out of college, but there has been some college competition. What do you think of all these new events popping up that people get to watch and you guys get to cover?
I think it's fun. Like, for instance, the RTC Cup was something that I know myself and some of my other friends in the media, we've kind of, you know, speculated about for years and said how this would be a real cool thing if anyone could actually pull it off. So that's been fun events like that. I wonder how it'll be, you know, let's hope next year as we're leading into the regular season, if it's a normal year like we've been accustomed to, are we going to see these type of events like that? Coaches are willing to do them right now to just get their guys mat time after being away for so long. But, next December, they're going to be feeling the same way. So I'm just interested to see how that continues and grows.
Now we're going to be talking college wrestling season, something everybody's excited to. The NCAA championships did not get to happen in last March, and it was a little bit of a delay to the season, but it looks like everybody's going to be gearing up early January. NC State's schedule is out, a couple other ACC teams, still waiting for some ACC schedules. Very shortened season. I wanted to ask you, no open tournaments, no Southern Scuffle, no Midlands. The first tournament that these guys are going to be hitting are those conference championships and then the NCAAs. How do you think the season's going to play out this year in only dual action?
Yeah, it's going to be really strange. There's not going to be, I know NC State went out to Vegas last year and they got to hit a lot of top competition from other conferences, and the coaching staff normally does a good job of getting out of state or out of conference competition on the schedule. So the team gets exposed to high level competition. Again, with the ACC getting better each year, that helps. So I'm sure the coaches would like to be able to wrestle the Big 10 or the Big 12 or some of the top teams from the EIWA, which won't happen as much. And then, as you alluded to, I'm sure everybody's going to be, I don't know if nervous is the word, but not having the 2-day tournaments and 2 weigh-ins until you get to the NCAA tournament. So that's not ideal, but just with the way everything's gone, I think it's going to be, fluid situation and everybody kind of just doing their best to roll with the punches.
I think it will be interesting. You kind of touch on that 2-day weigh-in. The ACC championship, that's just a 1-day event. So even our guys aren't going to unless they go back to back with some duels here, which really we're not planning on right now. It's going to be very interesting. A short plug, ACC championships, Reynolds Coliseum later this year. So I think we should just dive into the season 2. NCAA championships. Pat says he got an email from the coaches about allocations or who's getting a bid. As a media, how the heck do you think allocations are going to go, or who's going to be wrestling in these? It doesn't look like guys are going to have many more than 10 matches this year heading into the NCAA championship. So who do you think gets invited? Are preseason rankings really going to be an important factor this year?
That's exactly what I was going to say. And it's funny because lots of times the media, the coaches, people say rankings aren't everything. Rankings don't mean anything. They're, just paper, things like that. But without all of these top ranked guys hitting each other throughout the year, they are going to mean something if there isn't much movement going on throughout the regular season. So, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Now I'm going to go weight class by weight class. I always start down at 125 and work our way up. For those of you following at home, I'm going to theopenmat.com. Earl, I got to kind of laugh. We were talking before I started recording. You said, man, I'm just about to update these rankings. So there's rankings on your website. They're going to be updated, but we're going to go through a couple. We're going to talk a little vague. And basically, I just want your opinion about some of our NC State guys. But starting at 125, and one thing I got to hit before NC State, the Ivies, they're not going to be wrestling this year. 125 really stands out as the weight class that's going to affect Pat Glory, Vito from Cornell, 2 of the top 3 guys. How much different is it? NC State was supposed to actually host Cornell this year too. What do you think about the Ivies not competing in the NCAA wrestling season this upcoming year?
Yeah, it's definitely a shame. And I don't know, unfortunately, they kind of made the decision really early. So I don't know. I would have liked to see them have more. Obviously, would have liked to have them compete and see the conference let it play out a little bit. But, that is what it is. And it's really a shame just because with the way Cornell's been a power for almost the last 20 years, but teams like Princeton have emerged as national players, and The other schools have started to recruit really well, so there are going to be a lot of high-quality kids that are not going to be competing because they're in the Ivies.
Looking at 125, obviously Spencer Lee from Iowa, he's actually vying to become a 4-time national champion, and he's pretty much at the top of the food chain at 125. And NC State, redshirt sophomore, Jacob Camacho, he's coming back with an ACC title as a redshirt freshman. We're looking at him right now. He's around that 8 to 10 seed line. So 8, that's All-American status. But he's going to have a little bit of a target on his back. People know about Camacho now. He's been doing well in freestyle, and he knows people are coming after him. He really came on towards the end of the season, really improved after the middle of the year. What do you think about Camacho's chances at 125, especially in the ACC, where Virginia Tech has a redshirt freshman coming up and some other veteran guys, but the ACC at 125, it's pretty strong, and Camacho, he's coming back with that ACC title.
Yeah, you mentioned it is him coming on at the end of last year. And really, when you're taking out guys like Glory and Arujal, you have Spencer at the top of the weight class, but after that, there's nobody, between those guys and Camacho that stands out as, this is definitely a guy that's probably, better than Camacho. He's going to be one of those ones that's, challenging for the spots up there with Lee near the top of the podium, in my opinion. He had a great upward trajectory throughout the season last year with his results in freestyle. I only see him getting better this year, and I could see a really high finish for him.
Going to 133, another redshirt sophomore, Jarrett Trombley, returns as this pack starter. This 133, it's stacked top to bottom. In the ACC, everybody seems to be stacked right in the middle of your rankings too. You have Trombley around number 20 right now. Can you talk about Trombley and just the ACC in general? Is all these guys really, they all beat each other, so there might not be one above the other. Felipe, I guess, from Pitt might be a little bit ahead since he's won a couple ACC titles, but everybody else, they're really jammed close to each other. And this is going to be a very important weight when it comes to the dual season.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we're not doing a lot of out-of-conference stuff, so it's primarily ACC duels. So he's going to have tough matches every night in, night out. Everybody is right there with each other. I guess you have to give the nod to Philippi based on his history, but even Myers from Virginia Tech has beaten him in the past. And so I guess the good thing would be no matter what happens during the dual season, you're going to be in the ACC tournament. Everybody's kind of along the same page. You could get a guy that's the third seed that wins the tournament. Trombley, he's going to have good competition, but, I like his chances as well.
141, your preseason number 1, Yanni from Cornell, obviously not competing this year, so that's going to bump everybody up one. Redshirt senior, his second year up at 141, Tariq Wilson. Everybody knows as a freshman, he had that great run up in Cleveland, got third place. Last year, honorable mention. He has a really good rivalry now with Zach Sherman from UNC, who's ranked a couple notches above him in the ACC finals, especially. But Tariq, he's looking around that 10 to 15, and he's really focused right now. And he wants to improve, and he wants to shoot for another All-American honor. What's it looking like? And what do you think about Tariq Wilson at 141?
Yeah, another year at the weight. I think that'll work out well for him. He's a guy, I look at the ranking and it just feels like I don't think he can finish higher than that. I feel like he will finish higher than that. And, I could certainly see something more in line with his freshman year, opposed to, sophomore or junior season. I mean, that's not that he didn't have, good seasons then either. But, that matchup with Zach Sherman, that's one I definitely want to see. And, hopefully we'll get to see it at least twice.
Up at 141, you have Austin O'Connor from North Carolina, preseason number 1. Also, a Fine Silver. There were 4 of them. Now they're down to 2. But Fine Silver's back in the rankings at 149. NC State, kind of 149. It's been a competition the last few years. AJ Lighton returns. He was the starter last year. We have Matt Grippy, and freshman Ed Scott might throw his hat into the ring here. So we could be seeing a few different people for NC State. They definitely will need to get some wins to get up in those rankings, but 149, O'Connor stands out from UNC as he's a preseason number 1, but this is a spot NC State needs to improve a little bit. And what do you think about the conference overall at 149?
Yeah, you mentioned O'Connor. I got to see him at the Tar Heel Open they had, and he had a very impressive win at that event. It's going to be another tough weight class. You mentioned Ed Scott. That's going to be a match that I'm monitoring at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, their event. He's got Terrell Barraclaw, who wasn't a big name coming out of high school, but he beat a former All-American and Kyle Shoup at one of their earlier events. And so he has Ed Scott. That's going to be kind of a good barometer as to where he is. And, something we haven't talked about before or yet is kind of the NCAA giving a year to the kids that are competing this year. So you may be more likely to see true freshmen if they're ready to go. And then it's also funny as we're talking about maybe these guys could compete one more year when we assume they're seniors right now. So, but as far as 149, yeah, that's certainly a spot where NC State could improve upon their ranking.
Hey, Wolfpack Wrestling fans, we are halfway through talking preseason national rankings with Earl Smith of the openmat.com. And for those that listen to our podcast on a regular basis, they would be worried if I didn't take a quick timeout and plug some of our current NC State wrestling content. Of course, you can continue to listen to each and every new episode of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast by subscribing and downloading it on your favorite podcasting platform. Just search hashtag Pack Mentality and you will get each and every new episode throughout the upcoming season. Please follow us on Twitter. We are at Pack Wrestle for all the latest information on the NC State wrestling team as we head into this new season. We're also on Instagram at Wolfpack Wrestling, and there you can get a behind-the-scenes look at the Wolfpack Wrestling program. And finally, a new venture we have just started is the Wolfpack Wrestling Club is now on Rockfin. You can subscribe to the Wolfpack RTC's Rockfin channel at rockfin.com/WolfpackWC and get all the latest content from the many events our current RTC guys participate in. As always, thank you for following along with us. There are no better fans than Wolfpack Wrestling fans. I think you brought up a very good point. We're so used, the ACC has really improved over the last couple of years where most of your top freshmen, they were redshirting. They were sitting out a year. They didn't have to compete right away. This year, no one has to redshirt. You can throw someone out there right away. We actually, you might not hear or know a lot about the freshmen that are going to be competing. How hard is it to gauge a true freshman into your rankings sometimes?
Yeah, some people believe you can do it right off the bat. I like to at least see them compete and before putting them in the rankings. I think that's kind of out of respect to the guys that have been in there winning matches and, going to nationals and stuff like that. And again, this year it's going to be different where you don't have an open tournament or two at the beginning of the year to see them wrestle 8 to 10 matches. They may just get thrown out in that first dual meet or the third dual meet, however it works out. So that's going to be another thing that's going to be unusual, monitoring those true freshmen.
157, and I'm not sure what to say actually about Hayden Hidley sometimes. We all know about him, his accolades. He's sitting at second. He took a loss to Deacon last year, and Deacon's the number 1. He's done a lot of freestyle this summer, senior nationals, RTC Cup, and he's actually in the domestic rankings now for freestyle. He beat David Carr, who's you have at number 3. I guess you really don't need to say much about Hayden, but this is a weight class. Those top 3 to 5 guys, it could be really competitive and really come down to the end. 157, I know because maybe we have Hayden up there and he's always near the top. It's one of my favorite weight classes. What do you think about 157?
Yeah, I love seeing it, and I love seeing guys. We have just looking at the rankings. I think the top 5 guys represent 5 different conferences. So I don't know. For me, just kind of the fan part of it, maybe seeing the 2 guys from the Big Ten finals meeting in the NCAA finals, it doesn't seem as exciting to me as if you have a guy from the Big Ten, a guy from the ACC, and the Big 12, all in the semifinals. Maybe they haven't met. You're not sure how these matches are going to play out. So that's fun for me as a fan. And I mean, what can you say about Hayden? He's going to go down as one of the greats in program history, and he certainly has what it takes to walk out Saturday night at nationals as a champion.
Looking at 165, another ACC preseason number 1, returning from a Olympic redshirt, Mikhail Lewis, Virginia Tech, a former NCAA champion. This weight class, wow, ACC has 3 guys here in the top 8 right now. Of course, NC State, Thomas Bullard coming back, looking for that All-American honor on the mat. This is really competitive top half of the weight class here. And I'm not even including, you have Kennedy Monday halfway down, and we know what kind of wrestler Kennedy Monday is. So 4 wrestlers here for the ACC all have a real legit shot in All-American honors.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where these duels are going to be important for conference seeding, and then conference finish for NCAA seeding, more so than maybe on the other weight class in the ACC. So, I like where Bullard's at. He's wrestled Mikhail tough in the past. He just needs to be able to. It's probably easier said than done because not very many people have figured out how to score on Mikhail. But if he can close the gap, and maybe something happens.
Looking at 174, brother Daniel Bullard. I just talked about how great 165 is. 174 in the ACC, you have 4 guys in the top 12. That's pretty remarkable depth right there. A Fine Silver coming back from redshirt, your highest guy. But Daniel Bullard, another guy, he would love to join and get All-American honors just like your brother. And everybody loves watching the Bullards. How do you see 174? And it's got a lot of depth here in the ACC.
Yeah, it does. And then, nationally, you have, your top couple of guys. But after that, after maybe top 3, it's kind of up in the air. So a guy like Bullard, he's on a roll, has a good ACC tournament, carries over to nationals. You never know. He could be one that surprises people and has a really high finish at nationals.
184, I think you really just have to talk about 2 guys who are in your top 5 from the ACC. That is Hunter Bolin, Virginia Tech, Trent Hidley, NC State. They had some battles last year. It was usually a 1-move bout. Nino Bonacorsi from Pitt, he's moving up, so we're going to take him out of this one. But Trent Hidley, another great summer of freestyle action. People very impressed. He's added some stuff to his offense. He knows he has to score on Hunter Bolin. 184, very competitive. Those 2 guys could do battle maybe even 3 times this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite matchups to follow last year in the ACC. Hidley came out and was, I guess, as good as expected. This weight class was really young last year, and, a lot of the key players are back. So, it's going to be fun watching him and Bolin, as you mentioned. It wouldn't be a surprise to see them go at it 3 times this year, even in the short season.
Moving up to 197, very top heavy with the ACC is Jay Ayala. He's sitting up there by himself, and a couple guys in the ACC are kind of in the rankings down near that 25 to 30 range, including for NC State, Nick Reenan. Everybody kind of knows Reenan's story. He struggled with this knee injury for a couple years, but he's been hitting freestyle matches this year. I would think he even admits he's in much better shape this season. expectation is going to be a little higher for Reenan. So how do you see Nick, if he's healthy, in this weight class?
It's funny, I probably mentioned this to you last year when we talked, but I went up to Ohio State for the dual meet 2 years ago at the beginning of January. And I was talking to my friends who are all Ohio State fans. And, I was saying the way Reenan's looked this year, he's going to be in the 184 final, the NCAA finals opposite Miles Martin. And, that's kind of when injuries struck for him. So I've always been super high on him. And if he's in shape, like you mentioned, we're going to see him hopefully this evening against a good competitor in Michael Beard. He will blow away the current ranking I have for him.
Up at heavyweight, NC State, we love our heavyweights here, heavyweight U. Deontay Wilson, he was a runner-up at ACCs last year, and I'm not going to talk about the top half of this bracket here. It's very loaded with Big Ten guys, but as we work our way down the ACC, so many guys right around each other. Again, another weight. They've all beaten each other. Deontay had a very strong season last year. He beat most of these guys, fell to the guy from Pitt who has since graduated, but high expectations for Deontay. If NC State wants to win another ACC crown, they're going to need points here at 285. And there's so much competition right now at 285 in the ACC.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about following the ACC tournament is just it's such a small tournament. I mean, I'd love to have more schools, but being what it is, it's a small tournament, so you have one upset that could propel one team to the championship or, knock another team from first to third. So, this is going to be one where other teams are capable of beating Wilson, but, he has beat these guys as well. So it could be that swing weight for the ACC, although, we've talked about 65 and 74 and these other weight classes that have a bunch of top ranked guys as well. When it comes to a tournament like this, it doesn't necessarily matter if these guys are all bunched up between 24 and 25 or 7 and 12. They're all going to count for the same point total.
And we're going to switch to the team I'm going to ask you about here. Last year, NC State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Pitt, all very good dual teams. All were in the top 10 almost the whole year. And a lot of time, if the NCAA tournament would have played out, I would have thought you would have seen those 4 teams all getting up there, trying to get in that top 10. What does NC State need to do to get a team trophy this year?
I think, you're going to have to get very high finishes out of the Hidleys. The team trophy, those are predicated kind of on high NCAA finishes. Getting a bunch of 12 to 15 ranked guys is good, but it doesn't help as much at the NCAA tournament. So Hidley's big finishes, a guy like Camacho, as I mentioned earlier, he may be in that 8 to 10 range now, but if he has a high finish, and, a Wilson, a Reenan, the Bullards, I guess it's really good because I keep pulling out names of guys that could have really good finishes at nationals. So you're going to have, probably 5 to 6 All-Americans, and 2 of them, I'd say, be top 3 finishes.
Earl, it's great to have you on. I would never tell Pat this to his face. I know he doesn't listen to the podcast, but I was glad he was out of town today because I'm a stat geek. I love talking rankings. You break stuff down. You know your stuff. I'm glad you're a fan of the ACC. Before we get you out of here, tell our fans where they can follow you and when they want to watch and read and see your rankings throughout this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's theopenmat.com. We're definitely going to have more college-related content in the next week leading up to the season, all throughout the season. On Twitter at the Open Mat, Instagram as well. For myself, it's Earl of Tom, Earl of the Open Mat. And I try to get, I don't know, the most content you're going to get. A lot of sites have good multimedia and videos, and I do put out videos, but a lot of our site is still based around written content, and I like to think that that's the best in the game. So check it out.
Earl, great to catch up. Hope to see you at the duel. Hope to hopefully see you at the ACCs, and if not, the NCAAs. But look forward to another great NCAA college wrestling season coming up here in very early January.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thanks for having me on, Brian.
I want to thank everybody for listening today. This is your Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast covering all things NC State wrestling. Until next time, Wolfpack wrestling fans, go Pack.
Mentality Pop-Ins podcast is produced by the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, go to mattalkonline.com.